అరుదు తాళపాక అన్నమయ్య పదములు.
Namaste and welcome to Tamrapatra Conversations 11 on all things Annamacharya. You have already heard 10 Tamrapatra conversations, and we are on the cusp of the 10th session of Tamrapatra on the 9th and 10th of April with Anupama Kylash and Deepika Reddy. It is indeed an honor and privilege to welcome dear friend, collaborator, scholar, dancer, and so many other things. And more important than anything else, the fact that she is the greatest supporter of art and artists and the biggest supporter of Tamrapatra. Welcome, Anita Ratnam, to Tamrapatra Conversations 11. And thank you so much for being this gorgeous, wonderful anchor to take us all through the many, many aspects and all things Annamacharya through Tamrapatra Conversations. Welcome back, Anita.
Thank you, Ananda, and namaste to everybody watching this. You know, I can't believe that we're in the 11th conversation and the 10th month.
Yes.
But we've had such an amazing journey. We have seen this one poet, this one individual whose brilliant and fecund imagination has spun so many worlds around two figures, two of his, his Ishta Devatas.
Right.
So there was Tirupati Balaji Srinivasa Perumal, Vishnu, and his consort Alamelu Lakshmi.
Yes.
So, Ananda, I think very much that wherever you go and all the various kinds of Annamacharya compositions we've had Sakhis, Tyre and the Sakhis, Goddess and the Sakhi. We've had the Perumal. We've had last month. We've had him as puppeteer, the philosophical way. I addressed Andal and Annamacharya.
Yes. And there was Radha. And there was Radha, the elements, the puppets.
Yeah. Yes, and we brought in concepts of the Goswami tradition, that he was actually prescient. We've spoken about the influence of Jayadeva and Oriya poetry. So here was a composer who he might have been geographically in one place and did not travel widely, but his imagination was like the doors were open, and it was 360-degree engagement. I feel so porous and so allowing to borrow
so many concepts, so many ideas,
and to braid them so effectively in his compositions. For those of you who are now getting used to Annamacharya, you must know that there's a lot of words, and the words are very descriptive. So each time the challenge for the choreographer has been, how do we go beyond the word? Because sometimes
the words say everything. The words say everything. It's all laid out already. It's already a fully laid out table.
Correct. So this month we are talking about Alankara.
Yes.
So Ananda, you live in Hyderabad, and you know that for Srinivasa Perumal, for Tirupati, the Alankaras are extremely, extremely important.
We all look forward to going on special days to look at the Velli Karamena. It's a different Alankaram, and on another day it's a different Alankaram. On some days you see the feet, and some days you're blessed to see the eyes. I mean, I think I think we all go for that.
Yes, and there is a special punya attached to each of the darshans. And of course, Vishnu is known as a Alankara Priya, Bhojana Priya, as opposed to Shiva, who's Abhisheka Priya, because that's all he wants.
All he wants is a Bilva Patra.
That's all he doesn't want.
Eka Bilvam Shivarpanam. He just wants one Bilvam. Eka Bilvam Shivarpanam. That's it.
And with Vishnu, perhaps more with his avataram as Krishna, they also dress him in saris as a woman. So there's so many ways in which the dress.
I think that again, what we talked of earlier also of the human becoming divine and the divine becoming human, and how beautifully it gets enmeshed with our own lives and our own way of looking at life, and how we, I think all that it's a kind of a going back and forth, I would think.
Also, Ananda, the people who actually adorn him, adorn him. Of course, the saris are woven in a special length and a special width.
12 yards, I think, right? It's 12 yards or 24 yards? I'm not so sure.
So it's a special length, it's a special width, and it's a special skill. To the way they fold and drape. It's such an art. And I wish we could know more about the art. But they say that many times when the people are actually doing the alankaram, not just draping of the fabric and, all the jewelry, there's a conversation that the priests are having with Perumal. And
that happens to all of us, Anita. I mean, not just the.
How do you feel today? He's like...
I have a to big Ganesha, and I do every Sankara Chaturthi I do an abhishekam for it, and there's a change of veshti. So the kattano. So when I'm tying, I'm saying, ouch, romba tight. So then I can understand that, because I'm like, sorry, it's become so tight. Let me make it. And sometimes it doesn't drape well. I say, why are you troubling me? So that happens,
So since alankaram has been braided very interestingly by Annamacharya with avataram, which is certainly very, very unusual, because we haven't thought about it that way in a poetic imagination. I think it's going to be very interesting. So let's call in our resident scholar.
She's going to talk about Leela and Vilasam, so it's time to have her in. Welcome, Anupama, to Tamrapatra Conversations 11.
So, Anupama, welcome to Tamrapatra Conversations again. You are the fund of knowledge. So tell me about the Alankara and Avatara twinning. I think it's very, very interesting how Annamacharya has imagined this particular composition. So tell me, in your opinion, what are the highlights and what are some of the very unusual ways in which he has handled Avatara and Alankara?
Yes, Akka. So his way of doing the Alankara thing is always comparison based. So that's what is interesting, because when he talks about, for example, when he talks about Neela Varna of Swami, then he will say, her hair is also midnight blue. So because of that, he's become a Neela Varna. So he gives this kind of thing. He says, because her neck is like a shankha, that is why he has taken the shankha in his hand. So whenever he talks about the alankarana or the ayudha or anything in the Shringara context, he usually attributes it to something connected with Alamelu Manga or, and the Dashavatara aspect also. So he brings in all these elements, and the Shringara, he brings it out very beautifully. I mean, even from the point of view of simply just the goddess. So like, for example, he talks about different kinds of flowers. And he says, this is offered because, her thoughts are so fragrant that, she's offered jasmines. Or, so these kind of analogies he brings in, which are very unusual. I think they're very, something very unique to Annamacharya's sense of aesthetic. It's a very different kind of an aesthetic that he has. So
very Upama related, Upama and comparison.
Very Upama related and very intricately woven with the ritual aspect also, like all the flowers, the typical flowers, the Shodasopacharas, the 16 kind of things that are done for Swami.
The comparison is also unexpected.
Very unexpected.
You don't expect, that kind of comparison.
Exactly. Like when he says, like Kama Yagamu Chese Kaliki, for example, there's a beautiful song in which he talks about Alamelu Manga performing a yajna of Kama, of Kama Deva. So in that he talks about her breath being the dhupam, or the fragrance of her hair or her body, so like this, the different aspects he brings out. And it's very, very interesting, the way he weaves it.
It's very difficult for dancers, I would think, that kind of multi-pronged comparisons, which you're not used to.
Yes.
Also, I think Anupama and Ananda, we're all performers, and we've become so used to reaching for certain, expected
True.
And I think that's why I keep saying that Annamacharya's thought process is so interesting, that when a dancer inserts or accommodates or includes an Annamacharya, somehow he or she has to take the audience to that world, because you suddenly have a Javadi before or something before and all that. You have to, because at the depth of it, at the core of it, there's such intense Priya, such Priyam, and such bhakti, so that he can take liberties. So that sense, I feel it. You really have to bring the audience and draw the audience into a core. I feel that Annamacharya's compositions, while so many are so popular and people may not even know that they are composed by him, it needs a certain carefulness.
A framing is needed.
Yeah, a care is needed,
It's almost like cinematography. Actually, it's almost like cinematography, the way his songs unfold.
Yes. And I was telling Ananda, Anupama, that he is like Ganesha, He goes round and round his tayar and termat. Okay. And the delicious fruit is his imagination, his compositions,
Completely.
And but he goes round and round, and he is offering the fruit now back to his to Tayar and Srinivasa Perumal. So he's not asking anything from them.
No.
He's actually wrapping them with this delightful imagery, so this fabulous hypnotic web almost. But how do you feel, Anupama and Ananda, that now Annamacharya comes back home to Telugu land, to a Kuchipudi dancer? No more, hesitation. I don't know the language. I have to have it translated. I have to do this. You come back into Telugu land.
It's second, I think Anupama, of course, I'm also Telugu lands, first and second, and now the 10th. It's really come back to Telugu.
Exactly. So there must be a great sense of comfort, which we're going to talk to Deepika Reddy about.
Yes.
And so, but there is another challenge that we will discuss later. When things are very comfortable, and you can take certain compositions for granted because you speak the language, you know the poet, you are in that same cultural geography. So how does the dancer then really connect with audiences who are not of that genre, you see? So that for me is, because when I do Tamil and say I do Andal or something, there is a huge familiarity, whether I do Nammarvar. But the challenge is, how do I take those concepts to somebody
to a non-Tamil audience?
Yes.
And I think that is quite interesting. Is there anything else you want to say?
I think we were talking of before Anupama came in, we were talking about the Leela and Anupama and I were also talking about the Leela of Venkateshwara Swami or Leela of Vishnu. Yes. And as compared to the Vilasam, we were talking of, the beauty, Anupama. So that is a very interesting idea that's going to come up in the coming session with Deepika. Yes. And so you think this has also been handled by other poets, Anupama, or is this a very peculiar aspect of Annamacharya?
I think this is a great influence of the Alvars.
Okay.
Because you have it in the Alvar literature also, where you talk about the Leela and then you talk about the beauty or the Vilasa of, of Goda and this whole Leela thing. Like even when she herself, when Goda herself talks about the avatars, whether through Ninda or through any other means, she always, that reference is always there.
Yes.
But what I'm interested is Dashavatara is such a Kuchipudi thing.
Yes.
So it is. And it's a straightforward storytelling narrative. I mean, who does Dashavatara?
The most famous Dashavatara of Kuchipudi is Matsaramuna Mariyam Budilo Unna Somakutrunchi. So it's like in Telugu we have a quotation saying Katte Kotte Teche. So it's like you tell the story and you just bring it home, deliver what needs to be delivered, the product. So usually that's the methodology. And even when they do different Dashavataras or they do Dashavatara Shabdam or anything like that, it's very theatrical, narrative based.
Yes, that's very narrative based.
Very narrative based. But now with this kind of a song and with Kuchipudi, we need to see, how the whole thing, pans out.
Very interesting. Very interesting to look at what is in store for all of us. Must be wonderful. Must be really wonderful.
Let's speak to Deepika and let's see her approach, because she has the familiarity of the composer, maybe not the composition, but certainly the language, and of course being a Kuchipudi dancer. So let's talk to her and find out what challenges, if any, this particular composition has thrown up to her.
Welcome, Deepika Reddy, to Tamrapatra Conversations 11, ahead of your own session, Tamrapatra, coming up on the 9th and 10th of April. So wonderful to have you here. Over to you, Anita, to take us through Tamrapatra Conversations 11 with Deepika.
Deepika, welcome. As I was telling the two ladies, Annamacharya circled around India and come back to Telugu land. So here is a Kuchipudi dancer who is tackling a composition in a familiar language with a composer that she's familiar with. Now, this kind of familiarity can also pose challenges. It can become so comfortable that you may not choose certain or make certain choices that will appeal to a non-Telugu or to a wider audience. But my first question to you is, has this what are the unusual aspects of this composition that struck you when you first received it?
When I first heard it, when Anupama and Ananda sent it to me, I was like, when I listened to it, the first thing that I said, yes, this is this Annamacharya in the 14th century, who has said both are equal. The Swami Varu and Amma Varu are equal. That, in today's world, it's like so heartening to see that a 14th century poet has written about equality of the Swami Varu and Amma Varu. That was the first thing that struck me, and I said, I must do this. And he was a little partial to Amma Varu, in fact. So, that really made me so overjoyed, and I said, yes, I'm doing this. And this film, Anita, gives so much scope for not only a Kuchipudi dancer, but I think all other styles also would love to do it, because there is scope for so many things. To do your descriptive Abhinaya, then to do your Nritta bits, because you can add your Sancharis, because Dasavataram, you can have some of the avatars there. So it's like, I really don't have words. I'm at loss of words to thank them for giving me this Sankeerthana. And it's not only for Kuchipudi. Believe me, you all would love to perform it.
But Deepika, the lachak and that little saucy naughtiness that Kuchipudi contains in its core, I think that will actually enhance Annamacharya's, because you could make it slightly playfully sarcastic as well. Like you who are, you are bearing the world, and but she's much better than you. She's superior to you. So it's I mean, it could be also taken that way, right?
Depends on who is the person you're, whether it's Annamacharya, you could have Annamacharya dealing with this subject, or you could have a Sakhi dealing with the subject. So each one will take it in their own way. I'm going to leave it to the viewers to decide how they want to play with the item. I'll just give suggestive hints of both. So let them handle it their way and see that. And you'll watch in the last stanza. That's my favorite. Anupama, I wanted to ask you this also. I think the last two lines are something. It's like in a different level altogether. What he has
beautiful
written.
ragam. It's in Behag.
And I love Behag because I must say I grew up listening to Narayana Te Namo Namo. This is the song, the same ragam. And so I really was very happy that you gave me this Behag song. And
a lot of this comparative metaphors, we were discussing this, Anita and Anupama, just before Deepika came. A lot of metaphors, which are, the upama, the comparison that is constantly playing. And I think, as we were discussing, like we were all Kuchipudi dancers, the narrative aspect is bounced off against a very Shringara aspect. So what is your take on that? I mean, it's extremely narrative, very descriptive, and it's already there. The Dashavataram, I mean, it's all laid out. And this other thing is so suggestive and so not there. And this is upama that is happening, the comparison that's constantly being thrown. So how have you found dealing with that, with this Kirtana, Sankeerthana?
It gives so much scope because it's Kuchipudi, as you all know, is a theatrical art form. So there's so much of you can use the drama angle in this also, and also the descriptive side. So it's like he's balanced both, and I've also like used that both the elements and everything. It's like it's come to me on a platter. It's like I'm enjoying it because both I can show the Sringara part and also the drama part, the theatrical part.
Which means it gives you a lot of scope for Nritta, which has been a very early Sankeerthanas.
Yes, it's giving me scope for that, so I can use a few of the charis and some of the interesting padabedhas and all that also I can use in this. That also is giving, and a lot of Angika Abhinaya, because I've been so inspired seeing Vempati Master Garu doing a lot of Angika Abhinaya even in his Annamacharya Sankeerthanas. So that influence is definitely there. So you'll see that also.
I think the Sankeerthana gives you that possibility of Angika as well, being used in the expressive format, which is interesting.
I'm looking forward to seeing how you insert the Nritta, in this composition, because we haven't seen very much of that aspect in many of the previous choreographers, because the words themselves are so descriptive, and they sort of color a certain universe, and it seems just enough to dwell in the words and the raga, and the flow of the ideas. So I understand that not all the 10 avatars are handled in this particular composition. And so which are of the avatars, which did you find most interesting?
The appropriate ones which I have used are the Vamana Avataram, and the other one that I've used is the Kurma Avataram. And to show the little bit of the Kuchipudi Jhalak also, you'll see a little of Mohini.
Okay.
And yes. I've also used the Kolipimpu or the Konugolu, as you say, just to give that suggestive Kuchipudi flavor. So you'll see a little of that.
I would love to see an all-out Kuchipudi, presentation, because sometimes I feel to be within complete soaked in a tradition actually makes it universal. You make it particular, so you make it universal. Yes. So I'm really looking forward, Deepika, and I'm looking forward to how you're going to handle this parallel comparisons, of these well-storied, accepted avatars that are supposed to change the universe at that time, and the universe was hanging in its balance when the Kurma Avataram or the Vamana Avataram came. And for it to be almost carefully tossed away to say, yeah, that was good, but look at her, it's because of her.
But see here, now we have to hit the gym, we have to do exercises. This lady comes with an hourglass figure. Just imagine, she has a waist like this, and then her teeth are sparkling. She doesn't need to go to the dentist to get her teeth cleaned. Everything is like picture perfect. What is, it's so amazing. She has it all.
Interesting. Yes.
No airbrushing, no photoshopping,
nothing.
No blow dried hair.
No liposuction, no Botox, no fillers.
It's actually very interesting that she mentioned the Vamana Avatara, because it is that line, that description that actually made me think of it for Kuchipudi. Because Kuchipudi, I've always seen it has such an expansive, at the same time, such an inward movement, at the same time expansive. And the description of Vamana being, so expansive, and her small waist being, the so universe. Cute. It really, that somehow made me, feel this is perfect for Kuchipudi as a form.
So Deepika, tell me. Please.
And every day, like from the time I get up, I've been only singing this song, and I don't know whether my swarasthanas are right or anything, but it's just giving me so much of happiness, I must say. Believe me, I just have fallen in love with this song.
We are looking forward to this whole session coming up.
Deepika, my final question to you is, as a Kuchipudi dancer tackling this particular composition, has it stretched you in any way? Have you discovered something about yourself? Have you made any surprising discoveries for yourself about the art through this composition?
Through this composition, it's like actually I'm thinking of myself as Alamelu Manga, and trying to improve my romance in my life also, because the last stanza, it says that whatever she does with her subtle gestures, she's showing the romance and all that. So it helps in so many relationships. I feel it's like a takeaway for me also. That's what I feel in my
fantastic. That's fantastic. The fact that I think influence us from centuries and inspire us from across centuries.
And also that song says she's here. She's perched here on his chest. That's such an important spot, and all of us know that in all our dance dramas also, in Srinivasa Kalyanam and all that is a space. That is her place, and that's when Bhrigu Maharishi and all that, all of you know the story.
Yes.
So that the whole Srinivasa Kalyanam happened only because of. Yes. So in this song also, he's mentioning that time and again in the Pallavi. That's beautiful, because we want to be here.
Yes.
So I'm telling my husband, I want to be there, right there. It's like that.
Yeah.
So Deepika, we're looking forward to this. It's what you tell us is it's a love story, and it's also a playful sparring of comparisons of might and beauty, the kind of expanse of the universe that Srinivasa Perumal represents, and the kind of, this very rooted, but such a calm and such a confident Alamelu Manga, who says, yes, the whole world can go and worship you and throw money and gold, but you know that I am your half, or more than your half.
So with this, I think we can say better half a little bit, because that's what I think.
That's exactly what Annamacharya is trying to say. She is your better half.
Yes.
Literally.
Sri Mahavishnu, Sri Vaishnavism. So Sri comes before.
Sri Venkateshwara Swami.
Sri Venkateshwara. Without Sri, there's nothing.
Absolutely. So that's wonderful. They're wonderful ladies. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Anupama, and thank you, Deepika, for this, invigorating, sparkling conversation, Tamrapatra Conversations 11. It's been a pleasure having all of you for this session. We are looking forward to seeing all of you watching this conversation. Go out and register at tamrapatra.mystrikingly.com. Registrations are filling up quickly. The session is on the 9th and 10th of April on Tamrapatra, of course, where we will be meeting Anupama Kylash and Deepika Reddy in this exquisite Sankeerthana in Behag. You don't want to miss this. Lot of romance, lot of love, and lot to take away. So see you all soon at the session. And thank you once again, gorgeous ladies, Anita, for anchoring this session and being the bestest friend, like youngsters say, my bestest friend, bestest friend of Tamrapatra. Thank you, Anupama, for being who you are and for being our pillar of support and collaboration, my partner for Tamrapatra, and my dear friend, Deepika Reddy, gorgeous dancer, Kuchipudi dancer, choreographer, and a dear friend and a lovely person. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here, and see you all soon at Tamrapatra. Om Namo Venkateshaya.
Thank you.
Agudu talapaka Annamaya padamudu Ah